So I recently got back from a trip to China. I was there for just over a week from March 28th to April 3rd. And I just remember when I was prepping for the trip, the entry requirements were super confusing. We were actually scrambling up until the day of our flight to Shanghai to try to get everything sorted out. So I thought I would make a video just sharing my personal experience in case it can help some of you save some time. But just keep in mind that requirements are constantly changing, so make sure you check what the latest official guidance is based on whenever you're going to China. But again, I was there from March 28th, flew from San Francisco to Shanghai with a layover in Taipei. Got to Shanghai on March 28th, flew out on April 3rd. So, in case that helps give a rough range of when the guidance that I'm going to talk through was applicable. So in this video, I'm going to talk through entry requirements and also what to expect once you arrive in China. So let's get into it. So in terms of requirements for entry, there are three main things that you need. The first one being a visa, the second one being a negative COVID test. And they only accept PCR tests, but I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then the last thing is the health declaration form. So I'll talk through these one by one, but the visa piece, I think that's pretty straightforward. I think China has always required a visa, and I happen to have one that was valid for 10 years, so I didn't need to get a new one. I don't really know how long it takes these days to get a new visa, but that's something you'll definitely need in order to get into the country. The COVID test requirement was probably the most annoying part of this entire experience. So at least as of late March, they require you to test negative via a PCR test, so they won't accept a rapid antigen test. And you have to take the test within a 48-hour window before boarding the inbound flight to China. So they don't care if you're vaccinated or have proof of vaccination, you still have to test negative via a PCR test. So that also means if you recently had COVID and you test positive through PCR, because apparently you can, I think, test positive up to 90 days after you've had COVID, then you're basically out of luck. So also keep in mind that if you have a layover, the 48-hour window again is before your inbound flight to China. So if you have a really long layover somewhere, you might have to take the test at the airport to meet the timing requirements. So all that being said, did they really check COVID test results? No. So me, my dad, and my sister, we all flew into Shanghai on the same flight, and we didn't have to show any sort of proof or documentation of the test. Maybe we just got lucky, but I got the sense that they weren't really checking. So when you fill out the health declaration form, which I'll talk about in a little bit, there is a question where they ask you about what your test result was, and you basically check positive or negative. But besides that, they don't really have you upload any sort of, screenshot, images, proof. But I think officially on the embassy website, they do tell you to bring a hard copy, I guess, in case they ask. So we had that just in case. They didn't end up checking, and I'm really glad we didn't decide to pay for a PCR test. I got my test done at CVS, and the results came back just in time before we were going to leave for the airport. Technically, the CVS test that I did was outside of the 48-hour window, but that was a chance that I was willing to take. So yeah, do with that information what you will, but that was just my personal experience. They didn't check at all. So the last thing you have to fill out 24 hours before you land in China is the health declaration form. Once you fill out the form, it will generate a QR code that's only valid for 24 hours. It's not a big deal if it expires. You can just fill out the form again and get a new QR code. In my sister's case, they actually made her fill it out at the airport when she was checking in for her flight from JFK to Taiwan. So not even the flight from Taiwan to Taiwan to Shanghai. but I didn't have to do that for my San Francisco flight. I'd say the health declaration form itself is actually pretty straightforward. There's English translations for everything, but just a few things to call out. So there is a section where you have to write down your address in China. So you first have to select the province, and then it'll populate a list of cities in the second drop down. The third drop down, I assume it's like region within the city. I had no idea since my hotel didn't list that as part of the address. So I just selected the first one. Again, this is something I don't think they really check. So if you can't find the exact like region, I wouldn't worry about it too much. There is another section of the form where you have to fill out your travel history over the last 14 days. So it is a required field. So even if you haven't traveled anywhere, you have to put something in. So for me, I just put in the United States since that's where I was coming from. And then at the bottom of the health condition section, there is a question asking you about your COVID test result, and you just, again, select positive or negative, and that's really it. So once you submit the form, it generates a QR code. You're gonna wanna take a screenshot of this and keep it saved on your phone for the entire duration of your trip. So I didn't know this until later on, so I'm glad I didn't delete the QR code photo, but you actually need the QR code when you exit China, since it'll help you auto-populate the exit form, and it'll save a lot of time. So not the end of the world if you like happen to delete it, but the form on their machines, it takes a lot of time to fill out. So as much as you can auto-populate that with your existing entry form, it just saves time. If you don't have a super long layover and you can fill out the health declaration form within the 24-hour window before you fly out, would definitely recommend doing that. I tried doing it over airport Wi-Fi during my layover in Taiwan, and I actually couldn't get it to go through for some reason. Thankfully, I had a data plan on my phone, so I was able to do it that way. You can also do it when you get into China. I'm sure the network at the airport will let you access the form, but the line to go through customs gets really long and it moves really slowly, so you'll just waste more time if you wait to do it there. So once you get into China, you'll have to go through customs. The first part of it is scanning your QR code, which should be pretty quick. When I went, I don't know what happened or what flag I set off, but I got funneled into this small room, whereas my dad and my sister were able to go through right after they scanned their code. My sister suspected that it's because my temperature might have been slightly elevated since it was really warm at the airport. But the room that they took me to, they ended up having to take a swab or swab me. Thankfully, it wasn't a nose swab, it was just a cheek swab, but at this point, I have no idea if they were screening for COVID or if they were just taking my DNA, but yeah, my sister, who's in med school, was saying that if they're trying to screen for the virus, they should be taking the sample from the back of your throat or your tonsils, not the cheek. So who knows? After you go through the QR code scanning, then you get in line to have your passport and visa checked, as well as your photo taken, your fingerprints taken. I think this is at this point standard customs procedure, even outside of China. But before you get in line, you have to fill out an additional written form. I forgot to take a photo of this, but it's a lot of the same information that you fill out in the health declaration form, so it shouldn't take too long. It just might take some time to find all the information, so ideally you can have that ready. This part of the customs line took forever, but once you are through here, you're good. It's off to baggage claim, and then you can leave the airport. And that's basically it. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Again, the requirements will probably continue to change. So everything that I talked through in this video was based on my personal experience going to China end of March, early April timeframe, but definitely check the latest requirements based on your trip dates. Hopefully they get rid of the COVID testing requirements soon, since I think that was the most annoying part. But yeah, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks so much for watching.